How do you leverage your knowledge, experience, and expertise when you're creating your business? My guest today, Matt Levenhagen, and I talk about his early work experiences and how they inform his web design agency. You see, he worked in various industries, but always wanted to do his own thing. He leaned on his experiences and his passions to create unified web design, where he translates his customer's vision into a digital asset that gets them found on the web.
You're listening to Espresso Jams, short, concentrated, delicious conversations about business, technology, and entrepreneurship. If you're just starting out on your business adventure or you're a seasoned business professional, I'm sure you'll find value in these short conversations. Espresso Jams is brought to you by Apexible, providing the tools, insights, and transformative structures to help you reach your business summit. I'm your host, Joe Matz. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Espresso Jams. Today, I have Matt Levenhagen with us, and Matt is an owner of a website design agency. He's also a podcaster, but today he's a guest. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, where do you hail from today?
I am located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, fantastic. Beautiful weather out there.
It's not too bad today, actually. Sunny.
All right. Hey, that's great. So
I think it might get over 40.
We do have listeners all over the world, so 40 could be colder than where you are. Could be warmer.
Yeah.
So, Matt, you own your own agency. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we want to know, how did that come about? And was there anything in your early years that might have indicated you would do this crazy thing, like try and own your own business and actually succeed in it?
I don't know what, like, succeeding wasn't a foregone conclusion.
Okay.
And I've gone through a number of businesses in my life, and some did better than others. But looking back at my real young years, I'm in my early 50s now. Going back into my probably late teens and 20s, I think for some reason I can't go back precisely into that mind and what I was thinking back then. I was a rebellious teen into my 20s. But I do know that I like the idea of business way back then, because when I did go to college, I went to several colleges, never quite got my degree. I would always start and take a bunch of classes, and then I would get distracted and do something else in my life.
Find something more interesting?
Well, one was, like when I was in my 19, 20 years old, I decided I was going to be an artist. And I pursued fine art. I was like a Picasso, right? I was stretching my own canvases, doing paintings, big paintings. Did that for like 6-7 years. So that's why I went to college for like a semester, took some business class, took an art class, decided I was going to be self-taught, and do my own thing. And that's just where I was in that time of my life. I went back to college. I went actually to a technical school for a year and a half, then I was transferring to UW Milwaukee here. And I was also taking business classes. And I had, at that point, this was mid 90s, I had decided, I definitely wanted to do something in business. And so I started doing that, but then I did drop out of that again because somebody offered me a job at an insurance agency. And it was Allstate Insurance. And I worked there for like 6 months, and then we decided to partner up and start an independent agency. And that was like a 3-4 year venture. So I just, in my 20s already, I kind of had this idea that I wanted to be a business person. And I think part of that was that I also like sales and things like that, things that didn't have a cap on my income, or that didn't limit me in some way, that I could, do my own thing and build what I wanted. And so that's kind of where that foundation is. But then I had that creative foundation too.
Yeah, I
So
hear a lot of left brain, right brain stuff going
yeah, I have like a balance of that, right? And so yeah, I think to be balanced, I need both those things. Um, and so that's kind of, there's other things in there. I got into, so I had my own little agency for a while, a number of years, and then I discovered the internet. And then I had some internet businesses. And then about 10 years ago, I decided to um, end what I was doing there, cash out, and go into web design development, because over those years, I had built a lot of websites of my own. And I learned that I was marketing them and doing all this stuff. But I like tinkering with websites. And I liked, I would get a little too obsessed about that.
Okay,
And
so what I'm hearing is you built some of these websites for your own businesses on the internet and figured out that you had some skills and some abilities in building the websites. And did you go out looking for clients, or did someone come to you first and say, "Hey, I like what you're doing. Could you build me a website?"
yes, mine was pursuing.
Okay.
Because I had built my first website like 2002. It was an insurance
Oh,
website.
wow.
Obviously, I had an insurance agency, and the only reason I built it is because I wanted a website address on my business card. So I wasn't even thinking like internet yet, and I built that, and that led me to doing all these other businesses and having websites. But when I decided to kind of go into freelancing and start building, because I was building it for myself, I'm like, what if I flipped that and started building it for other people? I did it actually under a pseudonym for a while.
Hmm.
I
Is that
actually
a
had a different
little
name.
protection in case things didn't go right?
No, because my story is that, I had actually another business. I
Okay.
was in affiliate marketing, pay-per-click advertising. I had memberships. I had thousands of people that had bought my products. So I wasn't unknown. And I had kind of this thing in my head where I was going to continue doing that. And then I was going to do this other thing. Because if you look up my name, you're going to find what I'm all doing. And I just wanted to kind of keep that private for a while.
Hmm.
And it was just a decision I made. And so I did, yes. So I went to freelance sites. I found, at the time it was Elance. That's now Upwork. They got absorbed into Upwork. And just started applying, trying to get jobs there. And people post jobs on those boards, and
Right.
you submit.
And that was freelancer.com, which is now Upwork.
It was elance.com.
Elance. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they were purchased or something, they merged or
Something
whatever.
like that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
freelancer type sites out there. There's
Yeah.
Upwork, Fiverr, good sites for starting out, and some
Yeah.
people.
And I built quite a good base of business from there in those days, in the early days. But now you wouldn't know because it's no longer existing. So.
So you had to find clients somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I had done that for a couple of years, and I was getting business elsewhere. Then I started, as people got to know what I was doing, and I got referral business, or other people that I knew online or offline would ask if I could do a website. So that did start to happen organically. But then I got a job in like 2014, well, a larger contract that lasted a year, and then they hired me for 3 years. So I became an employee for 3 years.
Okay. Now,
Until, yeah.
back in 2010, 2012, so there were a lot of people building websites. What did you do to differentiate yourself?
I don't know if I consciously did back then. I think I always just came with my skill set, and like somebody needed something done, and I could explain what I could do for them, or I could solve their problem, whatever they're doing. Right. But I think naturally though, because I had that back, where I still differentiate myself is the fact that I had for almost a decade online, did internet marketing, SEO, pay-per-click, building landing pages, building websites, driving traffic, creating ads, doing all those things, analytics, Google Analytics.
So that's a lot
And
of the background stuff, what people don't see when they go to the website.
right,
Because,
it's a lot of, right,
how many
right.
billions of websites are there out there? And it's no longer, it used to be if you build it, they will come. Now it's like if you build it, you will be on page 100 of Google search
It's a little different
until
today.
until you do what you've got as the background information to drive traffic to the website.
Yeah. So what that I think also having my sales background and stuff, it helped me sell myself in my skills and how I could solve a problem and stuff. So yeah, and all that is background though. So what it's allowed me to do, and I have these conversations today because I actually partner with other agencies as well, but they're marketing agencies, they're digital marketing agencies, they're advertising agencies. And, but I made a decision that I would, even though I have all that background, my focus is web design development and basically translating what their needs are onto, into the code and the website and design and all that stuff. But what's helped me is the fact that I know the domain and I can speak the speak, right? And so when I'm authentic, I'm not, I've been there, done that. And so when I have a conversation with a agency that's marketing, they're marketers and all this stuff, I understand what they're trying to do. And I think that is what's kind of naturally helped me close more deals and work with more people.
I would say the type of background that you have is almost the perfect background for someone who is building websites.
Yeah, I mean, like you have that. I'm unique in that I like the technical side of it. I've always liked coding, and that's kind of a creative process too. As you design stuff, you kind of design it with the code. I can design it live if you want to, just with the code. You don't even have to make a mock-up or anything. But I always liked that. When I was a kid, in my teenage years, I did some programming and stuff in BASIC. It was like an old language back then, and I would
Yes,
create
I
these little
remember that well. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. And so I had, for my science fair project in ninth grade, I built a robot, so I always had this techie kind of side of me too. So it's almost like that's what the three things are. It's like the tech side. I like the artistic side. I like creating things and not having any rules, just creating stuff, and then business. And so those three things kind of are married together. And so, yeah, that creative background, that technical, enjoying technical side of it, translating stuff. So one of the things I felt like I personally, as a web developer / designer, specialized in was translating design to code, which I always love that process.
So bringing your client's vision to the computer screen through code.
Right. Essentially, so I love the process of the design process itself. Of course, is listening and discovering what the client needs, asking the right questions, figuring out where their pain points are, and all the stuff related to that, and then creating that design. But even if I didn't create the design, you take a design. Sometimes it's given to me, and I'm going to translate. So when you have a design like in Adobe XD or Photoshop or whatever, it's oftentimes a flat design. There's ways to add animations and stuff to graphics, but then taking that and translating it to the code so it comes to life. That's right. What now you take a concept and you translate it to the code, whether it's a WordPress theme or other template. And now you can go to that site and you can animate things. It comes to life. You worry about the navigation, all that stuff. And then what's the best part about it is when you see the results of that.
Right.
And
You've actually created something and you can see that, which oftentimes when you're a cog in a huge company, you don't see that. So that's
if you're involved with the client or the agency, you might have access to things where you can start seeing the traffic, or maybe you help the conversions, or that's it's the website's one thing. So it's like different pieces, right? It's like figuring out the design and translating that to a website and worrying about the user experience and all that stuff. But actually seeing the conversions. That's why I always loved about pay-per-click advertising, the marketing I did years ago was you go through this process of building the landing page and all this stuff. But when you actually log in and you see the sales, right, or see the leads, that's the satisfying part. You went through this whole process and now you're seeing the results.
Now you see it. Now people are clicking on it. You're seeing your numbers increase. Yes, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You created something of value, something that people are interested in, and you can see those results. And now on the web, I guess it's almost immediate that you can see those results. Once you put it out there and you put your ad out there, whatever format the ad might be.
Right. It depends on how you end up driving traffic. If you leverage other people's lists and drive traffic that way, or if you do it organically with SEO, that's going to take longer. And it depends on the niche and how insane that niche is. But if you do advertising like Facebook or pay-per-click and you're willing to, you can pay the money you can pay, you can start seeing results pretty quickly.
How has the pay-per-click world gone recently? Is it more expensive, less expensive?
Certainly more.
Does it depend on the niche? Are some niches more expensive now than they were, and some are less?
That's not the Wild Wild West days anymore. Okay. when we started doing this stuff back, when I started doing it back in 2003, 4, 5, I always think about those Wild Wild West days. That's when you could get 5-cent clicks and you make good conversions because you're paying like pennies for traffic. But yeah, I mean, certainly over the decades, niches have become more expensive. It's a lot harder to get those cheaper clicks. So you got to have a better conversion process on site and good funnel and all that. But yeah, and then even Facebook it's not as easy as it once was. That's a little different than pay-per-click, but it's competitive.
It's competitive. Yeah, sure. And now, when someone contacts you for a website, do you have a process that you bring them through from a prospect to a paying client and then to the actual production of the website?
Yeah, there's certainly a process. Depending on the origin of that client or prospect, you consider it a lead at first. If it's somebody that's just contact you or whatever, the first thing for me, like kind of the first step, it depends on where the track. So if it's an agency, sometimes the first step is going to be, I'm going to end up getting they'll have like an intake form that answers a bunch of questions. So I may not even talk to the client at first. It's like they give that to me and then I will look at it and say, okay, we're missing this piece, or I need to know more about that or whatever. So sometimes it's that way for me. But if it's a direct client, the first thing I'll usually do is jump on a phone call with them and have what we call an intro call.
Okay.
So to save everyone time, the first one's going to be like 15 minutes. And I just want to get on the call and see if we're a good fit for you and vice versa. And ask some quick questions, figure out exactly what they're looking for, and probably even talk about price right away. Get a ballpark. So that's for me. To qualify that lead, and to make sure that it's a piece of business that's worth. We don't want to waste either party's time.
Right. Nobody wants to waste time.
Right. So if I say, well, that type of project's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 or $5,000, certain people are going to be like, that's way too much. It was great to meet you, though. We're friends now. Maybe we can help you in the future. But if they don't balk at that at all, and they just, and the conversation continues, you're in the right place. And so that's the first piece. And then if that goes well, then we'll follow that up with probably a more in-depth call, talking about the actual project. And I'll very likely we'll go look at the site first. I'll get basic access, WordPress site, I'm getting admin access, maybe FTP, and do kind of an audit of the site. And again, it depends if it's an existing site.
So do most of your clients already have a website that they're looking to redesign or completely change?
Most,
Okay.
I would say 80%, 90% are going to be, once in a while we run into a new business or a new website. Somebody's some, oftentimes it's an existing one that, or ones we're merging together, like we're doing, talking about this week with a client, or so we're doing a redesign. Either and sometimes they might already have like a style guide, they have a logo and everything. We're just taking what they have now and just refreshing it, modernizing it. A lot of
Modernizing it.
times,
Yes, I've
yeah.
seen some sites that look like they were made in the 90s. Oh, whoa.
I had somebody recently, they said the site was made like 6 years ago and it looked like it was made in the 90s.
Okay.
You just,
Yeah,
there's good designers in there, and there's, just like anything else,
sure.
and agencies are different. So I had a client this past year that they spent a lot of money on this website, and they just had a few months back, and they didn't like the design. They could never, they got the site built, but they didn't like the design. I'm talking tens of thousands
Wow.
on this website. And I'm like, I said probably wow too. But it was because this probably agency was really good at the code side. They built a great site. It was fast. It was whatever, but she couldn't translate her vision on the design side. So I actually came in, I was helping her with a new landing page and kind of rethinking that design and figuring out a path forward. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of that because websites generally, I heard a statistic years ago, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I think most businesses will redo their website every 4 to 5 years.
Every how often?
Every 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
there's new technologies out there. There's new trends that you want to keep up with.
Or the
Yeah.
business evolves. The business evolves, what's being offered, or they actually figured out their branding now and they want to improve that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
a lot changes. Yeah.
I went through that recently, and it was a big thing. It was bigger than I thought it was. Took more time, took more energy, more effort. I lost folks on my emailing list because I changed my email address to coincide with the new name of my business. And
Mm,
wow, there was a lot going on there.
yeah. There's a lot of things there's a whole stack of things that you
Yes.
have to consider when you're doing websites, and things you learn early on is like always ask, where's your email? Where's your domain email if you're going to change a server or do sometimes, because we'll do that too. We do we'll migrate somebody to a better server and stuff like that.
Right.
But you got to know, with experience, well, that means we have to update something on the email side if they use Google Workspace or Microsoft or whatever. So there's all kinds of things.
If I were to do it again, I would definitely employ some help somehow, and I would do it over a longer period of time so that the folks who are getting my emails in their inbox continue to get the new email address in their inbox and not
Yes.
spam. I mean, my open rates, Matt, went from 35% to 5%. And now I'm backtracking. Now I have to backtrack and get that 35% back up, back there because I like that. I like the 35%.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot going on, and that's why we have professionals. And I did a DIY this time. I will not do that again if that comes up, nor would I recommend it.
It's good. Well, it's a good experience, though. I mean, you always got to look at the positive side of it. Now you know things that you wouldn't have known, but I think that's the important thing. Like I was talking about before, where I did so many things. I built niche sites and did all this stuff, but knowing all that stuff, I know the questions to ask. Details on how to do things. Like it's really important for me to talk to a client and to talk to my team if I'm going to hand something off to them, and like to know, even if I'm not doing the work myself, if I got a team member actually building the thing, I knowing how it's built and how that all fits together and all the
Right.
things you got to think about.
And you know
So
the pitfalls because,
yeah,
like me, you've fallen into them maybe in the past,
all right.
So,
But my point is like when you have now next time you have somebody else help you, you've been through the process, so you're
right.
going to be able to actually understand what's all involved and be able to communicate with them better.
Yes. Yes.
So
Definitely for
it's
one of
good to
my
have that
clients. For
foundation.
one of my clients. Right. I can say, hey, don't do what I did.
That too. Right. Exactly. All those experiences, good or bad,
That's
uh,
right. It all brings us to
help.
where we are today with
Yeah.
that experience, and that's what makes each of us unique. I think is that we all have our own knowledge, experience, and expertise. Some of it was earned with happy faces and great income coming in. Some of my experiences were that way. Some of them were the opposite of that way.
Mhm. I had a good friend tell me, I've told this probably 1,000 times. It's one of those things that sticks with you forever and always fits into a conversation somewhere. But I had a friend of mine. I was talking about this is probably 6, 7 years ago, and I was like, "Gosh, I wish I would have done this web design stuff decades ago, or web development, coding, all that stuff." And he kind of stopped me in my tracks. He's like, "No, Matt." He said, "Don't regret that because all of that stuff you did, from the art to the insurance to the websites to the memberships, all the stuff that you sold, all the good things and the bad things, that made you who you are today." And talk about differentiating. We're all unique, and if we can identify those things that made us and accept who we are and all those, and just leverage those
Yes,
going forward.
that's
And
what it's about. Yeah. Yep.
and yeah, so it's actually not a bad thing to have bad experiences because now you can educate others or help others avoid those bad experiences, or yourself. You learn from it.
Exactly. And they say bad experiences make good stories.
Yeah, exactly. Got a lot of them.
So, Matt, this has been fantastic, my friend. Um,
Yeah.
what we're coming to the end. So, what closing remarks or what one takeaway you could leave for our listeners today?
You know, uh, so related to differentiating, or I think you have to lean into what your passions are, what you enjoy. Like when I decided to do web design and development, and it may not happen overnight. Like you may not figure it out at first. It may take years to figure out what you should be doing. But when it does click, it's like take all those experiences you had, like we were just talking about, and make that unique person. Like you're a unique person, and figure out what makes you unique, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are too, because
Hmm.
that kind of forms us too. But and lean into that stuff and become, be your authentic self. It's easy. It's easier to sell. It's easier to get up every day and be excited about going to work and stuff if you're doing what you're passionate about
Right.
and what you should be doing.
Yep.
And that's going to be related to the things you're good at and like to do. And like I like tinkering with websites. And here I
Yeah,
am.
and you will find people who identify with what makes you unique, with your story. You will find people who do not
Yeah.
identify with that, but you're going to find people who don't want to hire you anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you'll find your tribe,
You'll
you
find
know?
your tribe, exactly, and that's what we want to do. We don't. I mean, how many billions of people in the world are there? And we don't need all
You don't
those
need all of
clients.
them.
We need a very
No,
very small percentage, and they're out
that's
there.
right.
They're out there. Got to express yourself, right? Um, so, Matt, how can people get more Matt Levenhagen?
Matt Levenhagen stuff.
Levenhagen. How
You
can we get more Matt Levenhagen?
Copenhagen with 11 in front of it.
Yes,
Levenhagen.
Levenhagen.
No,
It sounds
so
so easy when you say it that way.
been saying it for 50 years. Um, so I'm on social media, so you can look up. You could actually do a Google search for Matt Levenhagen, probably find me. But I'm on Twitter. My main hangouts are Twitter and LinkedIn, and I have both a business and a personal account on both of those. I'm at Levenhagen, and then my business is Unified Web Design. So unifiedwebdesign.com is my website, and also that's where I live on the web, on social media. And then thebuilders.fm if you're interested in business-related podcasts.
Yeah, great.
Dedicated website there.
Okay, Builders FM?
Thebuilders.fm.
Thebuilders.fm.
The Builders.
Thebuilders.fm and Unified Web Design.
Yes.
And that information will be in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yes, great. Matt, so great to have you here. Enjoyed the conversation.
It's great. We'll do it again.
Thank you. Bye now. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Espresso Jams. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on your preferred channel and never miss another episode. If you'd like more business tips on technology, entrepreneurship, and doing better, you can find me on LinkedIn at Joe Matz, that's JoeMatz, or go to my website, apexable.com, that's apex-able.com. I'm your host, Joe Matz, wishing you an awesome day.